Hello and welcome back to another We Are Sunderland team news. Justin, it's a bit of a guessing game today, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, Mike Dodds certainly said that, didn't he, in his press conference yesterday, that he was quite excited about the prospect of tweaking things and changing things around in what was expected with Jack Clarke's absence, which has now been confirmed with an injury. And yeah, he's certainly shaking things up, hasn't
he? Yeah, 4 changes from the side that lost to Birmingham. Obviously, 2 of those enforced with Jack Clarke out injured. Dan Ballard's he's also out suspended. So we've had Jensen Sealed come in. Callum Styles makes his debut. Job, what sort of role do you think he's going to play?
It's interesting because it looks as though the width is sort of been taken out of it. I'm surprised that Romain Mundle hasn't kept his spot after what was a good 45 minutes down at St Andrews last week, and particularly with Clarke out. Abdullah Bar comes in, and you just wonder whether that's going to act as sort of 2 number 10s in behind. Nazar Rusyn obviously replaces Mason Burstow as well. We speak about this every week, don't we, in terms of who should start up front or whether they should be given consistency and running the team. But yeah, it certainly seems as though that the width might be something that's been sort of overlooked, not necessarily overlooked, but it looks as though it could be narrow to me with Joe Cohn in as number 10 and then Bar possibly operating. We've seen him operate as the number 10 under Michael Beale in recent weeks. Plymouth here a couple of weeks ago, he started in that role as well, didn't he? So really interested to see what Callum Styles looks like. Player that it was on, then it was off in the January window with appendicitis. What was confirmed, he had to get an operation on that. He's someone who we know is quite versatile. He can operate in a number of positions, whether it be midfield, at full back or wing back, where, as you can see, we're guessing here a little bit in terms of where we think Styles might line up. But if that is the lineup, what we're going with there, there's going to be a lot of onus on Trey Hume and Styles to get up and down and provide that with Jack Clarke not inside.
Yeah, I think interestingly, if you go back to Mike Dodds' previous tenure, and where he took charge of the game against Leeds, a bit more of a defensive performance. Interestingly, during the week, he spoke about, okay, you can look at it from one point, but we actually restricted Leeds and then sprung on the counter-attack. Now, I don't think they'll have that sort of onus on them today. I do think they'll take the game to Swansea, which is why maybe I'm tempted to say that Joe will start up front with Rusyn, maybe in a more central role, but I don't think that would be. I think what we've seen when Joe's played, particularly under Dodds, has been is when he played off the back of the defender, has been he's peeled out and his late runs into the box. He's got the physicality up front. I've actually called to see someone play up front with Rusyn. So Job, when he has played up front, I think he's given them a focal point to play off, and I think that's very interesting that they've gone with that. Players 10s again, those forward runners will disrupt Swansea. I think we spoke with Luke from the Swans cast and spoken about the 2 centre halves that they've got not having much pace. I think that's ideal for Rusyn today.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure, it is pressure, isn't it? Sunderland need a result today, there's no doubt about that, especially if you look at the 3 games that are coming up after this one. They need to put what was a bad week behind them on and off the field, another turnover, another transition period. I think the one thing you would say, obviously, with Dodds taking over, like we touched on this week, at least the players kind of, they know what they're getting, they know what will have been like this week, they know how he works. And you referenced the Leeds game there, that was arguably Sunderland's best performance of the season. So you can see why, and that was obviously here, you can see why he might start with a lineup like that. But a lot of, we're going to find out today, it's been said over and over again, Sunderland are a one-man team in Jack Clarke. If you stop Jack Clarke, you stop Sunderland. Well, it's a really big opportunity for players to stand up and sort of dismiss that notion and try and write their own narrative here, because he's out on the side and you have to turn to somebody else. Someone's got to take up and take the man.
Yeah, we've seen 2 comments come through. Obviously, Rusyn and Job to switch, that's also a potential avenue, isn't it? We've heard from Michael Beale beforehand, obviously, before his departure, that Rusyn preferred to play off the left. Obviously, the form of Jack Clarke, he's been undroppable, hasn't he? So if that is what they opt for, that would then revert to your 2 10s, and that gives you space to get at them, doesn't it?
Yeah, that would make sense. Michael Beale said that he sometimes feels as though Rusyn could be more of a wide forward than through the middle. So it's a very good shout from Chris, who's brought that in. But for me, you look at the bench as well. I think Mundle's certainly the option based off that debut last week. You were down at St Andrews. He did stand out, and if things need to get changed, if Sunderland need to stretch things with a bit more with Rusyn, you would then think would have the tendency to sort of slip inside. Mundle might be more of a outright wide player. So there's a few options, but it's certainly an interesting team sheet. Like Dodds had sort of said we should expect.
just on that, are you surprised to see him dropped? I mean, I think he had a really good first half, and obviously it was his first start since arriving. He's got very little senior football, but I was surprised to see him dropped given how well he played. I mean, okay, it was only for the first half, and as we say, he hasn't played a lot of football, but Bart to come in there?
Yeah, I was surprised because, I mean, I think they've said as well that Mundell's preferred position would be in Clarke's role, that inverted winger coming in off the left. Yeah. I know he can play. They've said that he can play as the 10, as the striker, and as out wide, which I thought he did quite well with last week. You know, we saw times where he was just knocking it past the man and whipping a cross in and not having to drift back inside, which we've seen for the last sort of 18 months with Sunderland, with Roberts and Clarke bringing those inverted wingers. Yes, there's great success there, but every once in a while it is nice to have someone who can just shift it down the line and cross it in. So yeah, in that aspect, I am a little bit surprised. But you know, with the comments that are coming in, Rooston dropping over there, it gives something. It's something different to think about. You know, I don't think there's anyone in the stadium here who's coming this afternoon, including ourselves, who didn't predict this. You know, I don't think, and that'll be the same for Swansea. It'll probably thrown a bit of a curveball for them in terms of how Sunderland set up today. So the onus is certainly going to be on them to take the game to Swansea this afternoon. They're in a difficult run of form, albeit slightly skewed because of the fixtures that they've had. I think they've played all of the top six sides over the course of the last sort of month or two. But yeah, this is a game that Sunderland really need to put last week behind them and take the game to Swansea.
Swansea unbeaten in 5 against Sunderland in the last couple of outings as well, which history isn't on their side. But you know, as we saw when West Brom came to town with Leeds, anything can happen, can't it?
No, it can. I mean, interestingly from Swansea as well, they're leaving Jerry Yates out, a player that Sunderland have been linked with quite a few times over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years.
Caused problems as well when he's played against them, hasn't he?
I mean, goals have been a bit of an issue for Swansea. He's their top goal scorer. I think we spoke yesterday on the podcast, didn't we, with Luke, who said that they needed that striker and the winger. So it's interesting that he's been left out. Again, that's an option. We talked about Mundell being an option for Sunderland. That is an option for Swansea off the bench as well. Yeah,
interestingly, just on the bench, obviously we've got Nathan Bishop, Timothy Pembele, Lewis Amir Semedo, Mason Burstow, Romain Mundell, as we've touched on, Adil Sheesh. 3 youngsters in the terms of Chris Rigg, Caden Kelly and Thomas Lavery. Now, just a little bit on Tom Lavery. He's a youngster who FA Youth Cup, he's played in that. He's been he really impressed me in the defeat to Swindon. He's played, I've been impressed again when he's played in the under-21s. And interestingly, Mike Dodds was there the other week and said, I really like that right back, and finds himself on the bench today. So I'm not expecting, to come on and get an opportunity, but it just goes to show, the investment that we've seen in the academy since the takeover and the focus on that they're starting to see players drip through, and at times we haven't seen that.
No, it's a very good point, and we've seen a few of them in the squad this season. Like Ben Compton, obviously season's over now. Got confirmed the other night. Tom Watson as well. Chris Rigg we know about. I think we spoke as well. It'll be really interesting to see how much game time he's going to get under Mike Dodds in these sort of final 13 games. I think it's going to be key, to be honest, for his development and kind of what his future is going to be. There's interest from big clubs sniffing around him. If he's not going to get game time here, that would then possibly bring up a problem in the summer. So
there's been suggestions, hasn't there, that there's big clubs interested. He could move on. I think, as you say, the next couple of months, particularly for Chris Rigg, they're massive on them.
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly with Sunderland where they're at in the division now, I'm not writing the playoffs off for them just yet, and obviously that's not going to be a case until it is a case. But there's no reason why he can't play a role in what Sunderland are doing at the moment. Dan Neil and Pierre Eck with a burden has been on them throughout the entire season. The amount of minutes that they're playing and they're having to churn out week after week, he just brings a different dynamic. We saw it earlier in the season coming off the bench. The goal against Southampton. It's something that fans can sort of buy into as well.
Yeah, well, he played last year, didn't he?
So it's something that, if the season does start adrift, which there is a danger of it doing so, particularly over the next couple of weeks with those games, it's something that fans can then buy into if you bring in the likes of Rigg on and giving him the opportunity.
I'm going to ask you prediction for today.
I think, like I say, Sunderland they've got to win this, haven't they? They can't give up on the playoffs yet. It's only sort of 7 or 8 points depending on what West Brom and Hull are doing currently, but they can't give up on it yet. And they've got to get back to winning ways. They've got to kind of get over the mood of what's happened over the last couple of weeks. I think Dodds coming in lifts that a little bit because, like I touched on earlier, the team and the players, they know what they're getting with them. There's a spirit there. So I'm expecting a bit of a renewed performance, a bit of sort of something about them, a bit more urgency. I think a home win by the odd goal.
Yeah, I'll go with that as well. I mean, Sunderland have responded well. That's been probably the the one thing that you can give them this season. All right, they've been inconsistent, but they have responded.
And the home form's really good. The
yeah.
home form has been really good compared to last season, so that's something that they're going to have to maintain throughout until the end of the campaign, regardless of what happens over the next couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, keep an eye on We Are Sunderland and our socials. Obviously, you can head over to We Are Sunderland, subscribe. It's just £1 for 6 months worth of coverage. Follow us over on there, and we'll be bringing you updates from throughout the game. Thanks for joining us.